Student loan payments restart, which may trigger economic crisis. Here's a clip.
The story we were looking at is from CNN. Student loan interest resumes Friday and payments restart in October. Here's what borrowers should know. For the first time in more than 3 years, federal student loan borrowers will be required to pay their monthly student loan bills starting in October. The pandemic-related pause, which went into effect March 2020, provided relief to nearly 44 million borrowers by freezing their accounts.
That's crazy.
Interest will start accruing again on September 1st, after rates were effectively set to zero. Since March 2020, we know that now interest rates, which are fixed and vary by loan, will return to the same rate they were before the freeze. But borrowers still won't need to take any action until their first monthly payment is due, which means if you don't take action, you will be accruing interest on your debt and then have to pay more money.
But
they won't default.
The difference between a forbearance and a deferment is that a forbearance means you don't have to pay, but you're still accruing interest, whereas a deferment, you don't pay, but you don't accrue interest. And those are ideal, if you're going to put them off.
For most borrowers, the first payment will be due sometime in October, but not everyone has the exact same date. Borrowers can expect to receive their bill listing their payment around the due date at least 21 days beforehand. So will my payments be the same? They generally will be. How do I find out? Blah, blah, blah. My payments were automatic before. Blah, blah. These questions aren't really as relevant. What happens if I don't pay my student loan bill? Because interest will start accruing on September 1st, not making a payment will result in a borrower owing more on their student loans over time. But for the next year, through September 30th, 2024, the government is providing what it's calling an on-ramp period, during which borrowers are shielded from other normal consequences of missing a payment. Wow. A loan servicer won't, for example, report the loan as being in default to the national credit rating agencies.
So they still have another
Borrowers
year
don't need
that.
to apply for this benefit. This is one of the funnier elements of this. It means that as the economy starts crumbling and debt spirals out of control, you won't be able to know about it because they're not going to report the delinquencies.
Oh, interesting.
That means when that on-ramp period ends, you're going to see delinquencies from like 3% to like 43% overnight.
I wonder if we get to a point, just like we were just talking about with laws, where people are like, I don't respect that law. People are just like, I don't respect my debt.
I think there are a lot of people who say stuff like that. They're like, why, this is like, I'm never going to be able to play this out.
That's how it is already. So student loans are nuts because they won't fall off your credit report. But most people know if you don't pay your rent and you accrue payments and then you move out, they'll put it on your credit report, but 7 years later it's gone. Same thing with credit cards. If you miss one payment, and your repayment rate, your on-time payment rate, if you miss one, it goes down to 99%, but they only report them for 7 years. So 7 years later, it'll be back. So you have any collections, anything like that, except for student loans, which is very interesting. It'll just be gone in 7 years. But that's how they do it with the student loans, and then it's a whole thing. That's why universities are so damn expensive, right? It's just like, the government guarantees them, and there's no way to even get it off. And they orchestrated this either the 70s or the 90s. I don't know. They did one in the bill in the 70s and another one in the 90s to like orchestrate like all of this nonsense. And you go and look back at those times at college prices, they're kind of flat, and then like they go with trend with inflation, and then they're flat with inflation. Then 70s they go up, and then 90s they go up even more because now it's like, the student loans are guaranteed. Anyone can get a student loan now, no matter your credit, and then they don't fall off your credit report, and you can't get rid of them for bankruptcy.
I'm not going to deal with it like there's nothing I can do. I mean, ultimately, theoretically, the consequences, but this is why the argument of like Joe Biden campaigned on, I am going to forgive student loans. That was him saying, essentially, I'm going to bail you guys out, and that's why people feel attached to him, I think, and why it's potentially the biggest flaw in his campaign, because there are people who are counting on the fact that they will not have to pay these loans because they see it as an impossible financial hurdle.
What were you saying?
I was going to say the biggest problem for me is that there's nothing stopping it from happening again if they were to bail everybody out, right? Because
unless they stopped issuing government-backed student loans, which they won't do. They still haven't done it. Sorry.
Well, even on top of that, they're not doing anything as far as the universities. What's their culpability to it? Like, why does the same school that taught your parents, how come it costs 10 times more?
I just told you why.
No one addresses that.
But
they can just charge whatever they want, and the government just packs it up. How come the government doesn't have stipulations?
That's why.
Why can't you default on student loans?
Right. Why can't we do? Well, then, yeah,
you used to be able to. I think George Bush Jr. made it illegal to bankrupt your student loans.
No, it's in the 90s. It was something. It was Clinton.
Right, because
it's Clinton in the 90s.
I could be wrong.
I think 93
it's because the federal government stepped up even more with student loans. So they said, if we're going to step up even more and invest in the American public, we can't have them all defaulting because that would default the government. Well, here we are.
Rather than just be like, maybe this isn't a great system. Maybe we should consider not issuing these. Maybe we shouldn't be so obsessed with college being the one path to anywhere in America.
Again, it's fake now.
I look at the banks are for
It's really interesting because right now, college is at an all-time high. And right now, it's like back to the 50s with people that care about college degree. Like I was saying in another segment earlier, Elon Musk in SpaceX doesn't even care about a degree. You do the interview and you pass, and he can show you what you if you know what you're talking about. You don't even need a college degree to work at SpaceX. And if you don't know, SpaceX is insane to try to work for. Take their interview. If you answer one thing wrong, they just be like, nope, interview's over. You can't even redeem yourself. You're like, no, it's a waste of both of our time. You have to leave. So SpaceX interviewing is insane. And if they're like, okay, you don't need a college degree for this, it's just like, bro, it's just like college degrees, you don't even need them. But now they're at an all-time high. And more companies are saying they don't care about college degrees because you just realize they're like indoctrination centers. They're indoctrination centers. You probably learned more on your own if you didn't have a degree. So what's even the point? I'm paying you more for what? For you have wasted your time and you're probably indoctrinated. So I have to go backwards. I saw this one guy, a YouTube video like 10 years ago, and he said it's weird nowadays with millennials. And this, again, 10 years ago. So millennials are like 20s. And they're like, it's weird because I have to like be their parent. I'm their boss. And then I have to like explain all this stuff to them. Like all this stuff you learned in college, it's not how it goes. And then they always just want to have emotional days. This is what the guy was saying. They want to have emotional days, time off. And he's like, no, man, you work through it. What are you talking about? And he's the one who is their boss having to explain all this stuff to them. It's nuts. So they're making these kids pay all this money. They're indoctrinating them into it. And then you have to pay you can't even bankrupt on it or default. Well, you can default on a student loan, but what will happen? It won't get taken off your credit in 7 years like everything else will. Yeah, it's messed up.
So they want to charge you interest to make money, which is disgusting, but that's the system. But that the government is doing this.
They charge you interest even though they know they're going to get paid back because the government guarantees it, and you can't take it off in bankruptcy or the normal 7-year, cycle where stuff falls off. But they still charge interest.
For profit, that they're going to loan me money and then expect interest back. Like they loaned me $20,000. I don't want to pay them back more than $20,000. I've already paid $13,000 in interest.
But it's not so much about a profit. It's about how the modern monetary system works. And with the creation of the money supply, what they want you to do is pay back. Grant, don't get me wrong. Like a lot of these interest rates are greater than the rate of inflation. But a component of it is if the economy is inflating by 3%, we want you to pay back comparable buying power. If we give you 100 apples, we want 100 apples back. Guess what? In a year,
the only thing I don't really think is fair about student loans in particular is Ian's here like saying, if you loan me $20,000, I should only have to pay back $20,000. That makes absolutely no sense because me as someone that's loaning $20,000 to 100 people, one of those people, 1 to 3, 4 of those people are not going to pay back. So in order to actually be able to loan that money, in theory, not the student loans, because it's all a bunch of nonsense, but, on the surface, I'm responding to this. For a normal loan, 3 of those people, that $60,000, I have to make money back. Otherwise, and then how am I going to earn more money to go to 200 people or 300 people? I have 100 people loaned out, and they're not going to pay me back for years. So the only way for me to be able to loan to more people, which I think most people would agree would be a good thing. You get capital and you can create more businesses, more opportunity. The way to do that is you need to charge interest to get profit. And then what's the incentive for me to give you $20,000 if I'm not going to get anything out of it? I'll just keep it and do what I want with it for safe haven. So no, I get that. I'm like, charge interest. I have no problem at all with interest in loans, not at all. The student loans are interesting though because they're guaranteed to get them back, and then the amount of interest is quite outrageous, and you can't even take them off of the bankruptcy or anything. But I think they should charge interest. I think that's fair. It's just the amount they charge over so long, and then you can't even get them off of your credit report, no matter what, unless you pay it off. So the amount of interest they're charging, I agree, is quite outrageous, for the circumstances of that loan, because they just guaranteed to pay them back. But I think they should still get some amount of money back. Otherwise, what's the incentive to loan out the money in the first place?
Apples are going to cost more money. You're gonna need more money to pay back.
I'd be down with that if you paid back with your increase with inflation. If it went up with inflation, that would be understandable. That would be logistical. But this just flat out interest rates, compound interest on 18-year-olds that aren't taught about compound interest, full predatory, man. And I don't refuse to pay back the interest. I'm not interested in doing it.
Here's a story from entrepreneur.com. This gets worse before it gets better. Kevin O'Leary warns of real chaos set to hit the U.S. economy this fall. I thought this was interesting. I saw this a couple days ago. He said, you're just starting to see the chips fall. The layering is as follow. The regional banks don't know yet what their capital requirements are going to be. So their loan books have closed like a turtle in a shell. This gets worse before it gets better. And what's it doing to small business? Killing them right now.
That's us been for a long time. My roommate, he's almost 25. I know him through my brother. We moved to Texas together. We started a business together like 6-7 years ago. Moved to Texas when he was just around 18 years old. Go him, overachiever. He did know me though, not to toot my own horn. But anyway, so for me, my mom got a credit card for me when I was 18. I got like $2,000 when I was 18. No credit, easy. My friend here, my roommate, ever since he's been 18, then I think, when I was 18, I was born in 88, so 2006, before the financial crisis, 2006, 2007, and easily got $2,000 in credit. My friend, he's 24, almost, he's going on 25. He can't get credit. He hasn't had credit. Didn't really have an interest in it. I've talked him into kind of starting to build it just in case, but they just won't give him credit because he doesn't have any. So he has to go get a secured card, put $200 into that, and probably wait a year, and then he can actually get credit. Back in 2006, they would just give you credit. So now it's even crazier. They're closing the books on everything. My credit, I tried to get more credit cards in April to try to build up my portfolio. My credit at the time was a bit over 700. I got 2 cards. One was 1,000 and one was 500. That's all I got. That's it. I was like, I thought I had over 700. I was like, I have a friend who has like $80,000, $100,000 in credit. And then I'm just like, oh, cool. I'll probably get like 20,000. No, they gave me 1,500. One card, 500. One card, 1,000. That's how it is now. It's insane. They don't want to give you money to like anybody at this point. So you could like ask if the economy's good or bad, and then use your own anecdotal evidence like I do, inflation and stuff on Austin, how the prices are. But that just goes to show you how scary it really is. Even financial institutions who can make a lot of money off of people, they won't even give people money because they're so scared about it.
Money is being pumped into small businesses, and blame the most recent Fed hikes, including a benchmark raise of 0.25% last month, yada, 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 yada. The only thing I really care about this article is it's another high-profile business person sounding the alarm bells in the economy. Yep. And after learning about what's about to happen with student loans kicking in and a lot of people not being able to pay them back, it is not unreasonable, in my opinion, that could be a large catalyst, or at least a small component of. I don't know if it's a big component or a small component of some kind of economic crisis, especially if it hits the co-signers on the student loan debt. And then, of course, you have, I've mentioned several times, Michael Burry betting against the U.S. stock market. It seems like the people.
And the guy from Shark Tank, he's predicting that by Christmas that the economy's going to collapse or the market's going to crash, is how he put it. So yeah, and like I was saying in my video yesterday, generally, when markets do crash, they crash in the fall. And it's in an election year, presidential election year, or the year before. And here we are, year before. So very interesting. If it doesn't crash this year, it's probably going to really start in March. That's how it kind of starts, like with the banks this year. You know, this Silicon Bank started, this same thing happened in 2007. Again, crashed in the year before an election year. And then 2008, it really crashed in the fall. But it seems like that's going to be the case this year. Year before the election year, banks fall. By the fall, they're probably really going to fall. And then next year, it's really going to just really hit the fan. But it's going to be way worse than 2008 for sure. That was the mortgage problem, was like one industry. This is just the whole financial sector and the U.S. dollar as a whole, considering how much we've printed. Just go look at how much the U.S. has printed the last few years, and you'll be like, wow, the amount of debt that we've accrued. So, it's scary.
Money are concerned the market's going to take a hit. I have no idea what that means. I got people asking me every day, like, should I buy property right now? I'm like, I had no idea. Because they're like, but if the market's going to crash, I'm like, maybe. Probably. I have no idea.
But what do you do
what
to
upsets me
avoid
the most, and it's so infuriating, is we get these jobs numbers out every month, and the White House or mainstream media, take your pick, they put this positive little spin on it and wrap it up in a little bow, rather than just telling the Americans, hey, here's the problem, and here's what you guys can do as citizens of this country to help everybody and work towards resolving this problem, because it is so complex and there's no easy solution out of this.
The economy?
Yeah, but it's so political. That's why they do it. And these job numbers, like I was saying yesterday, they're nonsense. I didn't look into this specific job report, but I've looked into plenty of them in the past, Biden and back in Obama. And what they do, especially with under Biden, is the old people will come back to work. So they're like, oh, look at there's these other jobs. They're part-time jobs. So they don't have to pay benefits and they don't have to pay overtime. And then, so they'll be part-time. So someone will lose their full-time job with benefits and go get a part-time job, 2 part-time jobs, maybe even 3 part-time jobs. And like, oh, look at how many jobs got added. We added 200,000 jobs this month or per quarter or whatever. And then it's just like, well, they're all part-time and not good jobs. And then all the good jobs we lost. So, but that's how they finagle it. That's how they use it. And then retirees, the economy's so bad. Like, oh, look at these jobs. They're retirees. They have to go back to work. And so they add these jobs, low paying, and then the retirees have to take these part-time, low-paying jobs just to make ends meet. Then they need to get 2 of them, even retirees. So then, oh, that's 2 more jobs. That's how they do this type of stuff, to say there's jobs getting added, but they're not good jobs. Well, if you go look under Obama, they did that. We're doing the same thing under Obama, and now it's even worse under Biden.
Yeah. I mean, this all ties into the state of the economy right now.
It's not monetary, that's for sure. We're not going to fix the economy by another kind of money. It's going to be through material.
Sorry to cut them off again, but last night I ordered Instacart. I got 3 jugs of water, a pack of sparkling water, some allergy pills, tissues, and paper towel. $72 for that. I was telling my roommate, I was like, man, I'm almost 35. Birthday's on Tuesday. Happy birthday to me. September 5th. But anyway, I know I'm kind of old, but when I was like 12, that would have cost like $12. And now it's $72 just for that. Tissues, paper towels, allergy pills. That I get like the store brand too, so they're like $15 for a 30-day supply. 3 jugs of water and a pack of sparkling water. $72. Insanity. So you could just tell the economy from that is just wild. That's crazy compared to a few years ago.
I talked with Stu Peters about this. I believe it's live on his channel on Rumble, but I'll be posting a link on that on Twitter later. The interview I did with Stu Peters. It's technology. If we can make energy cheaper, make fuel cheaper,
nuclear,
the economy has become better. And so if you make if a tenth of the economy is fuel and you make that a tenth cheaper, you've basically made 1% of your economy. You've made your economy a 1% better. So it's like.
It's more than
That's
that.
why I'm obsessed with hydrogen fuel right now. Like, I feel like we can make cheap fuel, make cheap heat, electricity, building materials, transportation, the basics.
The trouble is when you see these videos at a Times Square where someone goes up to another person and says, name a country that starts with the letter U, and they can't do it. Or they say, like, who's USA. The current president of the United States, and they don't know it. And they'll say, like, when did America get its independence? And they'll be like, 1871. Like, they've no idea.
1871.
And you have a lot of these people, they vote. And when you see these videos, there are powerful individuals who then are deeply offended that these people are consuming resources and polluting. And so they turn around and say stuff like, we need to get a control on overpopulation because there's too many of these people weighing us down. You then get phrases like useless eaters.
Yeah, that's kind of what's the thing is, though, is what people say, like before public schools in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, before public schools really went insane, the people were smarter. The average person was way smarter. So they create all this. They create these public school systems, and then people are stupid. And then they're like, see, this is the reason why we don't need as many people. So you created all this. You could have made them smart, and this is why. Is because who's going along with the population control? These idiots that can't even name a country that starts with a U when they live in a country that starts with a U. It's nuts. So it's like you created all this, and now it's a cycle. It's a giant cycle because the elite school create this public school system, like I was just saying, and then they teach these people, and then the people that go through the public school system, they're the ones who want more population control or support the people that want population control. Oh man, I gotta say, it's a good method to do what they've probably wanted, and they just use that as an excuse. If it's by accident, they are really stupid, even though they're elitist or like elites. They're just like, oh, okay, well, we want population control because people are stupid. But then the reason why people are stupid is because of you. And then it's ironic again because, to reiterate, they went through their public school system and now they support the population control. It's insane.
You get weird international policies such as you will own nothing and you will be happy. And ultimately, that means, Ian, you will not get your cold fusion and your spaceships because in the event that there's an energy revolution on par with like this level of fusion energy, which is insane, that would mean a massive and explosive population boom.
You don't even need fusion. If you do localized fission, molten salt reactors, and they want to do them like there's a lot of startups that are really cool, which is kind of scary. Is Bill Gates is funding one. I wish I would remember the name of it, but I can't offhand. But probably avoid that one. But the tech and him just teaching people about it, maybe it'll backfire on him. But they want to make nuclear fission reactors, molten salt reactors, which goes in a cycle and it doesn't like deplete uranium or anything. They use thorium and it turns into uranium and then plutonium, and I think it just goes in a cycle if I remember correctly. So they're starting to make those the size of a garage. If we can do that, that is the future. Hydrogen and stuff, okay, fine, but you have to use more electricity to make the hydrogen than you actually get, and hydrogen's just hard to get unless you get it from water on Earth. So it's just like, yeah, what's really would be crazy is nuclear fission. Yeah, fusion would be outrageous, and fusion has made a lot of breakthroughs the last couple of years. The one is actually making a bit more energy than it consumes, finally. Yeah, they take these two things and they slam them together, bam, and it actually makes more energy than it consumes. Pretty fascinating. So this is like the future. Hydrogen,
That's for sure.
And there's a lot of powerful people who don't want that to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
You think with how expensive college is, we'd be seeing some more of this these technological advancements. We wouldn't be seeing train derailments in East Palestine.
No, it's the opposite.
How much Americans are paying for college, but we're not.
But the other thing is, like, college is a business, right? Like, I don't even know that all degrees are equal. I think there are programs that are probably great, but generally, people are paying to have the certificate. They are not actually always advancing to the level that we'd like them to see, or that would be implied by the fact that you went to college. A lot of people are in debt, basically having graduated by the skin of their teeth and having learned nothing. I mean, there are colleges that closed during COVID because the enrollment is so low and because ultimately the business of college is failing.
It's interesting that guy just said that. I think his name's Kellen. He's like, well, with the prices of college going up, you think tech would be better. No, it's why? Back when you could just go work a summer job for 4 years in a row while you're out of school for the summer. That's why tech got so good when you have to go every waking moment for 30 years trying to pay off your degree. You're stressed out. You're not thinking about new tech advancements. Like back then, like what do you have? You have your family and you have your job, and then your hobbies. Now, on top of that, you have this crazy debt that you can't remove from your credit report no matter what. No, of course you're not going to be thinking about just doing a bunch of new technical advancements. You're worried about paying your bills and supporting your family, even having a family most of the time nowadays with the economy and student loan debt. You have to go be paying $1,000 a month for a college degree. You can't afford a family. So, no, it's the complete opposite. When you're happy with a family and you're debt-free, you have everything you want, yeah, of course, you're going to be thinking of new advancements. If you have all this other stuff on top of you, bogging you down, no, you're just going to go to work and you're going to be stressed out when you get home and just probably want to play video games or get drunk or something because you're just so stressed out. You just need to, alleviate that somehow. Back then, you didn't need it necessarily. Maybe people would have a few drinks or whatever, but it's just like it wasn't just so heavy on people, so they could have time to think. And when they had a drink, it's probably like at the bar, just working and stuff. It wasn't just like, how am I going to pay my bills? There wasn't an existential threat like nowadays. Now it's just like, oh my God, that's all you can think about because if you're homeless, you can't have a job and then you can't work on this at all. So step one is just to have just general security, and people can't do that nowadays because of the loan. Well, a lot of different reasons, but that's part of it. If you go to college and stuff to learn this type of stuff, that'd be part of it. That's what I was saying earlier. Don't get a degree. Go on Brilliant or something. Brilliant.com. You've probably seen YouTubers support it. I'm not sponsored by them, sadly. I'd take it though. Maybe. I don't know if my audience would actually really sign up for it, but maybe. But anyway, so like Brilliant, like you could go learn from that, and then you don't have the debt, and then you could just focus on that. And you don't have to worry about all this nonsense.
Small Rabbit Monkey said, "Yes, you will, Ian. Don't listen to Tim." So I'm going to see that cold fusion. Thanks, Small Rabbit.
No,
Monkey.
I think we will, but I think there's powerful individuals who are trying to reduce population,
and they have a reasonable fear, because if every human had access to unlimited energy, Timothy McVeigh, what else would he have blown up? Like a psychoterrorist that had a horrible childhood, just beat, that hates humanity, has access to unlimited power. Like that's severely dangerous. So I understand why, but there's scales. I don't want to give everyone cold fusion packs just yet, but hydrogen fuel, it's lightweight and could be cheaper than gasoline.
I'm thinking about what is about to hit the economy.
You have to use more energy to make hydrogen than you get out of it. So that's the only problem there.
And perhaps the only solution is going to be student loan debt forgiveness in some capacity. It was easy to say when we were talking about 24 and 25-year-olds up to maybe like early 30s that we don't want to forgive student loans. These older people have all paid them back. It's like, look, these people hate why it's not fair. There's a lot of questions about fairness, about making the working class pay the bills of the highest income earners. But I think there is a harsh reality to whatever your opinion is. You're presented with two parent factions or parent paths to take. One, we do not bail out the people who have student loan debt. And then these people who are in their mid to late 30s and 40s, don't have families, don't have kids, don't buy property, become angry and purposeless and violent.
You could just, instead of forgiving student loan debt, change it to like how everything is. If you don't pay for 7 years, it falls off. If you get a loan and you don't pay it for 7 years, it falls off, and you could get rid of it from bankruptcy. So just do everything. You don't have to forgive it per se. I mean, bankruptcy, they forgive it kinda, but if you have assets, you give that back to the person who gave you the loan, and then you kind of do like a compromise. You meet in the middle. But just to forgive them outright and then use government money for it, yeah, that's kind of crazy. But let people take it off in 7 years if they want to wait that long. And then what pays for that? Insurance. That's what's always been the case. You know, you get insured. These credit card companies or creditors, they go and get insurance for the people that don't pay back. And even if they don't, they price that into their price of interest. And, you know, That's how it works. But the fact you can't get rid of student loans at all is just, that it's crazy. But you don't need to get forgiveness. I mean, bankruptcy is kind of forgiveness, but again, there's more of a compromise in bankruptcy. It's not just, okay, you don't have to pay anything.
Or
that 7-year thing is wild, though, because, if you just wait 7 years, you just don't have to pay anything. But that's a long time to have a credit hit.
We do bail them out, and the people who are supposed to be the crux of the economy resume working, have the load taken off their backs, and it stabilizes things a little bit. It's a question about the 2008 crisis when they bailed out the banks. Do you let the economy just course correct, shock everybody? There's going to be large amounts of death because of this, because of the economic crisis. Or do you bail out, alleviate some of the crisis, extend it for a little longer, but reduce the amount of death? It's serious questions.
But no, so no. It reduces the amount of death for now, but it just kicks the can down the road. It just makes it worse. Peter Schiff has this analogy of like a heroin addict. You go and you kick it down the road and let him do heroin for another month instead of getting him off. But then another month after, he's going to have worse withdrawals, and he's going to be way more likely to die. So getting it over with would really help you. But I don't know if they're death or anything. Maybe. But I think like charities and stuff, they're going to help people out, So I don't know, but it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Whenever someone talks about all this doomsday stuff, like the economy, I've talked to people about if the dollar collapses and the government collapses, they're like, oh man, that's going to be so crazy. I'm like, it will be, but I think it'll only take like 3 to 4 months. And then most people I think will probably think it's like takes years, like the Great Depression. The Great Depression only lasted years because the government tried to intervene to stop it. And then it lasted so long, it's outrageous. Because the government just kept trying to stop it. If they would have just left it alone, then it probably would have been a few months. So I guess it just depends if the government, how hard they go and if people listen to it, on the next crash. It's really interesting.
A reasonable approach that the government will likely want to take is going to be a bailout, whether Joe Biden wants to or not. And in fact,
he wants to.
May see this in 2024, Joe Biden coming out and saying, one of the biggest drags on our economy right now is student loan debt, and you all know it. Each and every one of you that has settled the debt that you can't pay back as you're living paycheck to paycheck, we will get it done.
Then why'd you start all this?
Pass the bill, blah, blah, blah.
He's probably right, but it's all a joke, isn't it? It's like a giant joke. They saddled everyone with the student loan debt by giving the non-bankrupts and everything, and now it's just like, oh, okay, now you're all saddled with it. Now we can fix it, even though we started all of it.
You got to vote for Democrat down to it. What's Trump going to say?
Well, you look at what they're doing. So if I owe Joe Biden 10 grand in debt, he's like, you can't pay that back. So what I'm going to do is print money and then take it from you and pay me back sooner. Right. And I'm like, dude, you can't force me to pay you back, Joe Biden. And no, let me pay you back at my pace, which is a zero because I have no interest in paying it back.
But I think the libertarian response is going to be let the system crumble. Yep. Just let it fall apart, and then we'll just restart from where we are.
I'm all about with putting the default on the loaners. Whoever loaned the money, you're not getting it back. I'm not all about printing up money to pay back those loaners.
But the problem is the loaner is the government.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to take the default. I mean, what's the point anyway? It's like $1 trillion. What's the difference?
I mean, I would love to have one presidential candidate say, when I'm in office, I'm going to stop issuing student loans, right? Because the system is broken. We can see it. We haven't dealt with the fallout yet.
Stop.
But
just
no one is
stop
saying
guaranteeing
that. Like,
them
why
like
can't
they
we
do
just
now.
stop a terrible program from existing?
That's why it's so expensive.
I got to read
college.
this super chat from Sumner. What does it say? Sumner.
I wish I was on this episode.
Citibank has a total of 14 trillion? No, 14 billion.
15 basically.
About 15 billion. I was like, the trillion doesn't make sense. Oh no, okay, I see right here. 15 billion shorting the Nasdaq, and 7 billion shorting the S&P. Bank of America has 23 billion shorting the Nasdaq and 18 billion shorting the S&P.
Wow.
Reminds me of
they're
the Big
shorting
Short,
like
when
crazy.
The guys who bet against the housing market were wondering why their credit default swaps were stable as delinquencies were skyrocketing and the mortgages were becoming worthless. It's because the banks were lying about what was going on so they could offload their exposure to unsuspecting smaller banks and lenders.
That's why it all got consolidated.
So they would go and say, hey, this is worth a lot of money. You should buy it. Then they would. Then as soon as they offloaded all their debt, they went, market's exploding. Have a nice day. And nobody goes to jail for it.
And at the end of the Big
the
Short,
government bailed them
they said, they had a little joke. How you're like, oh, we totally held people accountable. Just kidding. No, we didn't. So my question to you guys is, regarding the current situation, the current economy and student loans, should anyone be arrested? And if so, who? Should people be held accountable?
Just change the system.
What should happen? I know you guys kind of started talking about it with the defaulters.
I don't know about arrest, but what I will say is
change the system.
If you
don't
actually
arrest
want to solve
people.
a problem, you identify what's causing the problem. And I don't see that part. I see people are going straight to the problem and trying to band-aid it. But ultimately they're not stopping, the bleeding from the wound. The biggest issue that I see is that the federal government is trying to play manufacturing middle class, right? So that's why they're throwing all this money. Anybody can get a student loan. That's when you start seeing for-profit colleges that don't care about anything. Whereas our parents' days, they got accepted into school. That was the only way you got a college education, right? So they had to
it was way
and
cheaper.
On top of that, they had to find some sort of way to get a loan. But back then it was reasonable. Now it's become an entire economy on its own based off of cheap money from the government, because it's no regard. They'll just give it to anybody. That's part of the problem.
Yeah,
Same thing with
part of the problem.
Crash.
That is the problem.
Ultimately, it stemmed from the federal government trying to manufacture the middle class by saying the American dream is to own a home, so we're going to make it easier for everybody. And what did they do? They messed up the market, and they
messed up everything.
Incentivized.
And now it's ironic, like I was saying earlier, it's like now you college degree is worthless. So you pay as much as you've ever paid ever, but now it's as useless as ever. When you used to be able to just work a summer job and be able to pay for this stuff. You didn't need a loan. This guy's kind of wrong. I appreciate what he's saying and everything. I appreciate his point, but no, he's kind of wrong. Like you didn't used to need a loan and have credit for it. You used to get accepted and you could just pay for college because it was like $3,000 a semester. You go work a summer job, $3,000. You live with your parents. There you go. And there's the money for your college.
And that's what we're seeing with the student loan market. And they're not going to punish the people who are actually abusing it, right? The colleges, no one's talking about the colleges. Everything's about what's Joe Biden going to do. No one's ever talked about the colleges. No one ever talks about the endowment. Right? No one ever.
Chamberlain does.
What is the
seize the endowments?
What's the endowment? Yeah, I hear that. Seize the endowments. What is the endowment exactly?
Explain
it's
it.
Basically, how much money they just got sitting in reserves.
Yeah,
right.
There you go.
Even just
money that's been left to them or given to them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Tax-free stuff. People are donating.
People are donating, getting a tax credit, and then that generates money off of it.
Does the government?
It's from. The endowment is from multiple things. It is from donating, but then it's also because the degrees are so damn expensive that they just go set that in a coffer, and they're billions of dollars. These guys, like University of Michigan, years ago, maybe 2015, had I can't remember exactly. I'm just going off the top of my head, $1 to $3 billion, and it's crazy how much it probably is now. So that just shows they don't need to charge as much. They don't pay. The administrators get most of that kickback. Teachers don't get. I mean, the professors get paid decently, but they suck and they just indoctrinate people. So they shouldn't be getting paid as much as they do, anyways. But then the university just takes it. They just take it and put it in an endowment, and they don't use it for anything. They call it a rainy day fund. So it's like,
Government give them endowment money as well.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't believe so. But even from
the government does.
Let's say
he's wrong about that. Does the government give them endowment money? Like Trump was saying when he was president, if people were doing certain things that he didn't like, he said that they were going to get rid of federal funding, which is an endowment payment, whatever that means. All an endowment is profit sitting in the coffers, like how Apple, at least pre-COVID, had $100 billion sitting in its bank accounts. Is someone giving them money to put into their bank account if you buy an iPhone? I mean, yes and no, because it goes to manufacturing, it goes to stuff, but it's also going into their profit pool, like a portion of that. So it's like, does the government give them endowment payments? That's not the right way to look at it, because they're just giving them money and some of that goes into the endowment thing. And I know they get federal funding. So there you go.
College has, $500 million. I don't know. I'm just making up a number. but they're still charging your kid $20,000 a semester, right? Does that seem like it makes a whole lot of sense? Why is it so expensive? I'm not saying it should be free.
Because the loan is guaranteed.
Expensive?
That's why.
Top of that,
That's
I was
why.
talking to Shane Cashman.
That's
He's an adjunct professor. They don't pay anything for these people. And they hire a whole bunch of adjunct professors. So, I mean,
it's a scam.
It's one big scam. And now they're saying, let's bail out everybody.
The government started
keep
it.
the system in place. And guess what? In 10 to 15
Government
years,
created
we'll
all
be
this.
back at the same point.
Yeah, it seems like the college system is decrepit at this point, and that you can educate yourself online and learn faster, more readily, and from home.
Are the salaries of presidents of colleges public, generally speaking? I don't know off the top of my head. I'd be so curious to see how much money the upper management is making at these schools, because I had no idea about the adjunct professor thing.
$2 million
crazy.
Yale. The president of Yale makes $1.9 million a year.
Wow.
And remember, there's like the adjunct professors, but then they hire crazy administrative blow, right? There was a administrator and a sub-administrator and someone who helps with the paperwork and whatever else, all the way down. So if the point of the institution is to have, you know, professors that are researching and studying things, that they're good educators, why are they not the priority? Why do we have 85 administrators for every one professor? That's not the actual statistic. I'm making that up.
But they're never incentivized to cut the fat.
Yeah.
Right. They operate very similar to how the
loans are
government
guaranteed.
operates. They create a job and that job never goes away. Right. So if the government said we will only give money, but only up to a certain amount, and they started doing that wide scale, they'd have no choice.
Bro, what are you talking about? The government only gives money up to this. Just tell them they can't guarantee loans with the bankruptcy and the credit. So you want to get more government involved? Let's create more laws. This is always the flaw with people. They're like, do you know how we solve a problem that government 100% caused and we know created, and we could go look at the laws that got created and then go look at the price and look at how it went out of control? Do you know how we solve that? We give more government control and we create more government laws. Like, no, just get rid of the old ones, bro. What do you just stop? Don't put more regulations on if you can get the money. Just go get rid of the stipulation that student loans aren't allowed to get rid of in bankruptcy, and they'll fall off your credit. Then they wouldn't be giving them to everybody. The college would get way cheaper, and then there you go. There you go. Then they wouldn't be able to afford all this fat. They wouldn't have all these endowments.
But to cut the costs. Otherwise, they have no customer. Right. So then what do? They start cutting the fat. We can't have 5 administrators for this task.
I hate when people think that you solve government problems with more government.
If we're going to keep everybody making about the same amount. So we have to start cutting the fat. No one ever does that when it comes to college debt. They always say, what's the federal government going to do for us? They're the ones who screwed this all up in the first place.
And that's by giving unlimited loans.
Yeah. I mean, quite literally.
But you can't default on
it. You can't default on it, but anybody can get it.
Were they like trying to catch up with the colleges raising costs so they would give more loan? They'd be like, oh, we'll
how do these guys not know any about this?
I've always heard the inverse, that colleges raise costs because basically they were guaranteed that you would be able to pay tuition. Instead of being like, well, what can the average family or the average individual reasonably pay to attend our school? They were like, will you just take out a loan, right? Like even now, I don't know if your son will end up, if he's not applied to college yet, right?
No.
Okay, so some colleges will send you like the acceptance letter. I remember this happening to me, and they'll be like, congratulations, you got a scholarship. That's so exciting. Except half of your scholarship is a loan. So they're presenting it to you like, wow, we really want you to come here. But actually what they want is for you to take out a loan to go there, which is what everyone wants you to do anyways. Get paid That's also what the federal government wants you to do. One time we talked about on the show, like, I don't advocate that you give to your university, but if you were to, why can't you give directly to a student who is trying to pay off their student loans? Why can't you cover a portion of tuition instead of it going into a pool where then the 800 administrators that they have decide who gets it later? Why can't you have a more direct contact with the student? Because again, ultimately a lot of the money goes into the endowment, which never really reaches the people who need it, like the program heads, like the adjunct professors, like the students.
Well, back to what Tim said, it's a scam. It's not really about the students.
Not at all.
They give them a superficial product to make them feel like they're learning.
They push them into it,
We go and take these useless classes to make us feel like we're being educated, right? But they leave, and I've talked to so many college graduates where I'm like, I don't know what I learned, right? So you spent 4 years in college. You came out learning what? But you owe all this money. You got
indoctrination.
Scammed, like, I don't know any other way to put it.
What if we had like a Patreon thing for online college. I know Jordan Peterson's working on setting up an online college, and there's like Phoenix University, which was kind of a predecessor. I don't know how that works exactly.
As Jordan Peterson,
you can watch the individual students learning, and you're like, I love that guy. I love how fast he's learning. I want to give him $10 a month. Just like that. For a cup of coffee a day, you can.
But like, not the students, the professors.
Oh, yeah, and you can fund the professors too. That'd be awesome.
But that's how you do it. So what you do is you create an online university that gets accredited, that issues degrees, and then you say, here are all the professors and all the subjects we have available, and when you enroll in one of these classes, you are paying monthly to that professor. The professor, like 5% goes to the university, or 10, like whatever, like probably 10% makes sense because there's like transactional fees,
so what
and then server fees. But it's basically a Patreon for education.
Yeah.
And then when you complete the course, you'll get a degree from the university.
But for me, who's not even at the school, I just get to watch them learn online, the kids, and they don't have money, some of them. So I want to fund them to go to college. Like, I'm like in my 40s. I'm done with that shit. I just got money lying around. I want to fund. I'm just saying, I personally am not in that state yet, but there's always something to do with your money. But I would like to help fund kids without making them take loans out.
Well, those are called scholarships.
Yeah, so it'd be like a proactive scholarship.
It's funny about what he's saying. I get where he's coming from, but you got to kill the government program because if you want to fund someone with a scholarship, the price for the college degree is still going to be the same because they can get everyone else just to take a loan out. So the price is going to be the same for their degree. Now you just have to pay full price for the degree. It's cool. The kid doesn't have to pay it, but that's not going to help college costs go back down to a reasonable level or a fair market level.
Like an endowment directly to the student.
Yeah, I wish there was more
scholarship.
Yeah, that isn't administrated by the university that's going to serve.
Right, where
I get to pick private scholarships. There's tons of them.
Yeah. Where you get to pick who gets it.
Yeah, there's like private, there's nonprofits and foundations and grants.
But again, the price is still going to be full price.
That will be like,
when it
we
shouldn't
give
be high.
A grant to Asian Americans who are low income and want to go to college, and then they contact the institution.
The whole point of this is
and they say, write us an essay on why we should give you the money, and if you get approved, we pay for your college.
Yeah, but I guess I would like to cut out the middleman where it's like, if I had money, I could give it directly to a student at a school that
tax-free.
You know what I mean?
Matter?
Instead of it going to an administrator at a nonprofit or at a school who then decides who gets it later.
It's going to, if you're giving it to how do these guys know? No offense, I love Tim Cass, but this conversation is really, they're just missing the point, I think, of all of this. You have to get rid of the federal law that guarantees the loan. Otherwise, the price is going to stay up high, and you could go give them that scholarship, but the price isn't going to go down. And really, if you just had the price go down because you got rid of that federal law, right, then everyone could go there without you giving them a scholarship. Give a scholarship, awesome. But it's just like if you go and spend that $300,000 when it should be $30,000 for that 6-year degree, okay, cool. They don't have to worry about it. That's awesome, but it's not helping the system. It's just you're making this small little dent. What is it doing? It's not doing anything. It's helping like 2 people. Kill the federal law of that's doing all this. The whole system changes, and now everyone could just pay on their own. And then if you want to go help 10 people, 20 people for the same amount, that'd be amazing. But until we kill that law, the law that guarantees loans, it's never going to happen.
Build the technology, call it the scholarship.
It'd be interesting. I mean, one of the challenges is that education is great, and I think people feel starved for that in a way, and I wish we had more decentralized way. I mean, YouTube is the great example, right?
On, bro.
Everyone always says you can look up anything on YouTube. You can learn so much, and that's amazing. I wish that like
there's so much
it would be
decentralized
cool if cities had
education.
like more. I mean, public libraries do this and stuff. It's just we default to thinking the university is what's providing the lecturers or
I don't think
the
that.
things
I don't
that you can
default
go to just to learn.
I say brilliant.com.
I think
stuff
that's
like that.
where we kind of get this like shopping mall effect with universities. We think that's sort of where you go. Like after you finish high school, you go there and you get all the skills you need, and then you leave, and it's all kind of centrally located. But really, you know, if you're actively interested in a subject, you have to be more proactive. The university isn't going to really educate you on a lot of things, especially we've talked about this before. When you come out of high school, not knowing how to pay your taxes and things like that, like there are skills that you just continue to put off, and then finally you're like 22, 23 getting out of college, and maybe you learn something, but also you don't have any practical skills.
Right. And I think,
part
of the problem, I think
capitalism is the
Americans
problem.
have caved into thinking that education is institutionalized. Like that's the only way that you can learn.
I think it's changing, but these people think that, so maybe I'm wrong.
To a public school. The only way that you can have a real education if you go to a college or a university. That's the only way. Outside of that, you're part of the what? Non-educated class, right?
This
Meanwhile,
has changed.
These people who spend God knows how much money spend, how many years within school, come out knowing nothing and making less. And like everything is the inverse, and it doesn't make any sense.
It's interesting because like people are like paying for this. People are paying for this, and you could just go get job experience instead. You know, you could go get job experience, and you can go get job experience and then get paid to learn how to do stuff. Instead, with colleges, what do? You go and you pay into it. You have to pay to get experience. So, yeah, that's the thing. It's just crazy. People need to get rid of this notion that that's what you have to do. Like, go to college and all this. These guys are saying that. And what's interesting about the scholarships, to reiterate just real quick, yeah, you have to go to these, get scholarships. But then it's like, if the federal law's not done, then what's going to happen? The prices are going to stay the same. They get guaranteed loans. They can't file for bankruptcy. They get the money no matter what. Why would they change anything? You know what I mean? So, yeah, that is like something people really just got to start keeping in mind. It's nuts. You know what I mean? So, yep, that whole industry needs to change, and people need to wake up to that and just realize you don't need universities. Why pay into it when you can just, work on your own, go get a summer job, and in turn, maybe you won't get paid anything for a year or two, or get like paid minimum wage, but now you didn't have to pay for the degree. So if it kind of works out, you didn't get paid for 2 years, but at least you got education for free. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe for daily news updates, smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and share your thoughts on the story in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.